Right, evening everyone. I find it so difficult seeing you guys every second week because my other classes I teach are postgraduate levels and I see people every week. So this for me is not ideal. I'd really prefer to see people every week, but that's the system and we stay with the system. We can't change that. I want to remind people that we are starting an honors in distance next year. It's an honors in BCom. I would seriously hope that people consider joining us. There's plenty of information available. If you are looking for information, sorry, I'm just going to grab my phone. I don't get paid to market, guys. I do this because I believe in the process. The person you would contact, and I did share this previously, is Verona. Hold on a second. Her and I actually spoke today. At this stage, we have 33 applications, and I really think it is worth looking at us if you are looking to do honors next year. I don't know if I must share this or I did share it on the group. I don't want to do marketing, guys. Verona's number, I'm not going to type it, is 082 787 0184. Okay, I see, Nath. That's absolutely fine. For those of you that are interested, it's Verona and it's 082. Remember, I don't get paid to market. I'm also a contractor, so I don't have to do this 0184. If anyone is interested, I know that some of you might consider it later. Right, guys, so you can see what we're doing tonight. We are looking at Learning Unit 4. We're looking at international investments. And I shared a couple of these as interesting reading in terms of the kinds of globalization issues that create real economic performance in countries, that allow countries to grow in terms of world competitiveness. An interesting one is this idea of ASEAN. It is an economic community of all the Pacific Rim countries, and there you see, preferred trade between those different nations, guys. You can see here who the member nations are. They're the Pacific Rim nations, and really you have worked for them in terms of building the area, building the region, but also building individual economies, with a lot of those now considered very, very, very competitive globally. The other one I wanted to share is the idea of how other countries, now that the government of national unity has taken place, are looking at coming back and forming partnerships and investing and starting businesses, etc. This is a nice example of it. I am concerned about some of the stuff. The other one that I shared, I think I killed it because it wanted something. The one I actually wanted to chat about tonight, just for a second, I don't want to waste time, is this one. And it is hot off the presses. This was in News 24 today. Well worth the read. Their research is in prosperity and prosperity in different countries. But when you read this, and it really is an interesting aside, it's an indication that we are in South Africa in trouble insofar as prosperity goes. So they believe that there are certain contributing factors, variables that are non-negotiable for prosperity. And when I read this, that is deeply concerning in terms of South Africa. So we have to get our law and institutions, and we need to get them operating effectively. The other one is interesting, is the other issue in South Africa, the difference between the haves and I don't want to say the have-nots, the never will haves. So on the basis of this research, which won the Nobel Prize, and remember, guys, to win a Nobel Prize in economics is very, very impressive. I mean, these are individuals at the top of their game, making a global contribution in significantly important areas. But when we read the kind of findings, vast differences, it really is the idea of having societal institutions promoting this. And if you think in South Africa, what our governmental societal institutions have done. I mean, since 1994, we've lost a trillion rand or $1 trillion. I don't even know which one it is, a 1 trillion rand to unaccounted for expenditure, corruption, etc., etc. And a 1 trillion rand doesn't evaporate. So, as a macroeconomic perspective, South African government would do really well in terms of reading this and seeing what those building blocks of success are. Very interesting article, guys. I can't wait for the full report to be published. I will share that with you when I see it. And then just also, it's interesting, trade and food sectors where foreign investors go. Also very, very interesting in indicating where, if you want to start something in South Africa, the kind of businesses and the kind of industries that would attract people to invest in your business. Any comments on that? Any comments about that? And I was setting up and then I forgot to set up my slides. Any comments about what I've just said? Are we in deep trouble in South Africa from an international investment destination perspective? Kat, we were talking about the idea of what makes a prosperous nation and the idea of this Nobel Peace Prize that had said for Nobel Economics Prize, which I can share with you guys here. You can read what the building blocks are in terms of promoting prosperity in nations, etc. And it literally contradicts what we have in South Africa. So South Africa has to do a lot to get their building blocks right, because on the basis of these findings, and these are impressive findings, the truth remains that South Africa will remain impoverished, which is deeply, deeply concerning. Sorry, I'm just opening this very rapidly. Right, so to go through what we're looking at tonight, honestly, the Norwegian nations are getting it right. So, Switzerland, those kind of nations, the Pacific Rim nations, Japan, the Scandinavian, thank you, boy, I couldn't remember the term for a second, nations, the Pacific Rim nations, so Taiwan and Hong Kong and those kinds of places, obviously Japan. Althea, the truth is, the government of national unity has every opportunity to do this. But when you watch just already some of the issues being raised, Gayton McKenzie, our now popular Minister of Sport, who said there will be no more travels for fun on government's pay to international sports events, goes to the Olympics and spends 800,000 Rand on himself at the Olympics. So, we have these contradictory scoundrels in our country who we need to get rid of. Corruption will stand in the way. So I wish I could tell you I have a lot of hope for South Africa. I don't believe we can turn it around. The GNUs at municipal level are failing dismally, and that's where the building blocks start. Until we can get Eskom sorted and all the corruption around everything else sorted, seriously, I don't think we can. And I hate doing that because, in 1995, my wife is born in England. I just need to tell you guys, she wasn't born in 95, obviously. I haven't got a young wife. My wife is my age, so similar. I think it has to do with, absolutely, their culture and morals are different. Their priorities are different. I mean, just if you want to read something interesting, just read about morality and culture in Japan and the need for respect and the need to contribute to the country. I mean, our priorities generally, and I'm not saying these are my priorities, but we have normally God, family, and work. No, they do. No, I accept that. But suicide often because they've broken a moral code. So I would say South Africa, it is God, family, and work from 1 to 3. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, in 1995, we had a chance of leaving. My wife was born in the UK, and my son was going to be born in 96, and we took a decision to stay, which I regret. I seriously regret. I've made a big difference in terms of what I do here. I believe I still make a difference in terms of getting and helping people with. He hadn't been born yet. He was a speck in our eyes at that stage. Boy, he's 28 years old and a very impressive young man, actually. But yeah, my wife was born in England, so she has a British passport, and the kids are on British passports. And I don't know, maybe we should have gone to the UK then. So yeah, yeah, it really is irrelevant now. Okay, I don't know how many of the stuff I answered. The one thing, guys, if you wanted to read something interesting, read stuff on morality and culture in Japan. Please do that. It's an eye opener. Oh, and we prioritize God, family, work in that order. For me, it's family, work, God. I have to admit I'm not very religious. And that's me, it doesn't matter. But in Japan, in those specific rim nations, it is work, God, and family. The order, their priority is work, is what your choice of vocation is. Can I just see who is God, family, work? Or is it family, work, God? I know what I am. It's an interesting aside, and it's not about a religious discussion. No, they aren't happy, Cat. I think, there's a lot of pressure on perfection. I think to say they're unhappy, I think they're under pressure. I think they're under pressure. It's a highly competitive society, and you have to make a difference. But yeah, obviously the happiness countries are those Scandinavian or New Zealand, Australia type countries. Okay, let's go. Guys, so in terms of international business, it really is about doing trade and investment across traditional borders. um, yeah, it's for me, it's my priority. My family is my priority, but work does definitely come second. It's good, Boya. That's good. Hey, in terms of the the idea of international business, so it's about globalization. We know that in terms of globalization, we see the free movement of products, services, skills, and finances. And then understanding that if you are a multinational organization, that you will be having to contend with, global issues in terms of pestle, as well as the different countries you operate in, each of their pestle issues. And then what do we do in terms of creating competitive advantage globally? And there's certainly organizations that are very good at that. And all you need to do is do a search on world's biggest brands, and you can see which the countries are that are at the top of being globally competitive. And we shouldn't be too surprised in terms of those. Those are all multinationals. I don't know if anyone is surprised that how many of them are from America. I don't think we are. They're Silicon Valley guys. What is interesting that Louis Vuitton is the eighth most popular brand. Valuable brand. What is Louis Vuitton? They fashion, aren't they? I'm not the best person in that. Oh gosh, I'm opening a wiki after I've shouted at people to never use wiki. Handbags. Holy, what do they charge for handbags, Cat? My word. Jeez, today. Okay. It would be blimmin' expensive. 60K, Tunzi. Oh, yeah, I know. 60K buys a car for me. 30 to 100K. Mongalisa, how the hell does that even happen? It's an interesting one, that, but those are those multinationals that essentially are typical of what we see in terms of globalization. So to look at the concepts in international business, so international trade, obviously imports, exports. Give me some examples of South Africa's exports. What do we export? Yeah, fruit, flowers. Any others? I'm just cheating. I can't spell. Achar. Achar. You seriously? Diamonds, coal to Germany? Achar. Tunzi, what the hell are you thinking about? Yeah, well, we do. We export our skills. We export our rugby players. We export our cricket players. Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that, but we seriously do. We have a serious brain drain issue. I don't know what is here. Okay, no, I just took a chance. Export our skills, our abilities, our rugby players, our cricketers. Annoys me in the previous World Cup, 23 in the one day World Cup. 23 of the players that played there were born in South Africa. Chartered accountants, nurses, doctors. Um, I love how we go off on a tangent. Yeah, we also see that a lot of artisans are going to New Zealand, Australia, traffic officers to Australia. You cannot believe. Yeah, well, Musk must bugger off. I think he's off his rocker, that guys, in terms of foreign direct investment, obviously here we look at um, settling businesses, buying shares, buying parts of a business. You know, a nice example of that is now a little bit old, but it is when Walmart bought a significant part of Massmart and now own majority shares in Massmart. Foreign portfolios, shares, stocks, options, foreign direct investment, where you invest, where you start your own manufacturing place, etc., in a different country, guys. And then just other things that we have, the idea of importing export. But what really identifies globalization and global business is the presence of those multinationals, and we saw the main players in terms of those multinationals. But what we see with those multinationals or multinational enterprises is that they have a footprint across the globe, and they live the idea of designing in Germany, marketing in America, and then building in China. So what we see is that they know that every country has their own core abilities, their own core competencies, and those location economies are important in terms of where you manufacture, where you design, yeah, and dump in Africa. Let's be honest. A lot of the stuff that they sell here is not selling; it's bloody dumping. But again, yeah, and sell in Africa. The problem for South Africa, and that's why it was quite a pleasant article to read right on the day that I was going to do this class, is that what is our core competency? Why do we exist globally? We can't just be a dumping ground for rubbish that they don't want elsewhere. What is South Africa's core competency globally? We can't manufacture as cheap as China. It's impossible. Natural resources. You know, Kat, the problem with natural resources, in particular with the way we use our natural resources, and I'm going to focus rather on minerals, is that we export raw leather. Well, I'm saying we export raw diamonds and we import diamond rings. You know, we export raw leather and we import expensive Louis Vuitton handbags. So we export things without value adding. So if you look at countries like Hong Kong and Singapore, which are at the top of the pile in terms of competitiveness, everything they do is about value add. We export too many raw things that we don't add value to. Yeah, that's the one that irks me insanely. You know, you export fuel to Namibia where you can. I mean, I had friends who had a business in Botswana that would rotate their vehicles in and out of Botswana because it was half price to fill in Botswana as it was in South Africa at that stage, which is insane, Nate. That's just ridiculous. Right. So, guys, in terms of the other stuff, is the idea of a multicultural environment. You can clearly see your lecturer can't spell for anything, but the fact that you will deal with diverse people. So, international strategy, it really is, what do we do to be globally competitive? Multi-location strategy, and we will look at these again, guys, is the idea of customizing products for a local area, and you're not too worried about cost. Global strategy is when you provide standardized things across the world, and then transnational is really the idea of what your multinationals it's this idea of experience based and cost location. You design in Germany, you market in America, and you build in China. I will come back to those in a bit, guys. So I don't know. I'd always thought that with the internet happening, I thought that would happen. I mean, we know there are small businesses that export, small businesses that export, anything from animal hides to locally made trinkets. So there's nothing that really stops you, but it's to find an outlet. It's to find, where do you start? Do you start by exporting? Who do you export to? Do you set up some sort of arrangement in terms of a strategic alliance? All of those things are important. Oh, it's a massive risk, Kat. It's a massive risk. You have to have attorneys involved, and you have to have the right kind of attorneys involved. Okay, in my mind, it is a risk because without proper contracts, you could export and never see a cent for it. So I would always start with getting attorneys involved. But we know that because the rand is relatively weak, export businesses do really well, and particularly with locally manufactured stuff. They do really, really well. I won't ask what business it is because I'd really think you need to keep that to yourself. But you need attorneys involved. Yes, you do. Okay, one of my students who's now finishing his honors with me, was looking to export liquor, alcohol, to Canada. It became an absolute minefield. Locally produced alcohol became a complete minefield. He had to have attorneys involved. Okay. Right. So, guys, in terms of globalization, it talks about economic openness and increasing integration, etc. We've had three events, guys, in the last 10 years that have done the opposite of globalization, that has that have suggested that globalization might be coming to an end. In fact, let me make four events, but the fourth event is part of globalization. Three major events that suggested that globalization is not going to be a thing in the future. What are those three things? Keeping money flow. BRICS is at the end of it, and we'll talk about BRICS. So the first one, guys, was Brexit. Remember, England leaving, or the UK, my apologies, leaving Europe is the opposite of globalization. It's the opposite of that integrated. So you'll see here this idea of economic openness. And, you had the largest China manufacturing locally, guys. Remember, China has said that they have a single intention that the electronics industry would be fully self-sufficient internally in terms of their supply chain. So China, that's the second one. It's a very clear indication, guys. And truthfully, in 2016, when Trump came and said we will make America great again and import duties and we build at home, and it's the same horse manure that he's doing now. About the evil of the so-called immigrants in a country where bloody well everyone is an immigrant except for and I want to use the right Native Americans. And also, the fact that you call someone a Native American is quite strange. Who says they want to be called an American? And that's just me having a moment. So, well, his wife is an immigrant. Everyone who works in his house, in his hotels illegally are immigrants. I mean, Trump's wife is a fantastic example of having to import something to do a job so dirty that a local wouldn't consider doing it. Sorry, I hate that with a passion. bring in immigrants to do things not another American will do. Sorry, I'm having my moment early today. I said Trump, and that just irks me so much. I'm being recorded, guys. Oh, he's an authoritarian leader, dictatorial leader. Cat. I think he is the most dangerous thing that can happen in the world right now if he becomes president. I think the world is in serious trouble then. But he's an authoritarian dictator. Well, he'll immediately slide with Russia. Well, you'll fail. So try it, boy. I'll fail you so easily. I've got myself worked up now because of some orange scumbag. So, in terms of globalization, the free movement of products, services, skills, and finances, obviously the realities around multinationals, an indication of globalization. But what it does, it allows for location economies where different countries have different core competencies that they contribute to the world. What does South Africa contribute? You guys haven't answered me. What is South Africa's core competency globally? Be too expensive to build. Our labor is too unskilled to build. Good vibes. Good vibes. Yeah, braais, oor bliksem. We're in serious trouble. Good vibes and braais. I'll mark those right in the exam. Well, if you want, uh, Clem Santa about 15 years ago suggested our core competency should be a gateway economy, that we base our economy on the realities of the United Arab Emirates, because the UAE is nothing but a gateway into the oil-rich nations. And what South Africa should be is they should use the UAE model. So you improve your hospitality industry, you improve your transport sector, you improve your banking sector, although our banking sector is pretty impressive. You go for a service economy and you become the launch pad into Africa. So you become the gateway economy into Africa. We've seen some evidence of that. I think you guys are aware that Hisense launched, um, established themselves in South Africa to launch from here and use South Africa's platform to launch into Africa. We've seen, I think it's Samsung do the same thing. So Clem Santa, who I admire. I mean, this guy, the mind of the fox. If you want to ever read something phenomenal, read this. He's also, a guru in scenario planning. It's a hell of a interesting suggestion that we become a UAE and we become a gateway economy and we become this kind of platform accessing Africa. That's not my idea. That idea I stole. But everything I say here, I've stolen in some way, guys. So, what are the drivers of globalization? I know this is the assignment question, so we would have covered this. General agreement on trade and tariffs, World Trade Organization, removing barriers to foreign direct investment, all about free movement. I think the biggest driver is always going to be technology, in particular telecommunications technology. We also see transport technologies making a significant difference in terms of how globalization has happened. Transport technologies, the ability to transport and travel rapidly anywhere in the world now. I'm going through these quickly because we did this when we did the assignment prep. And then you can see some of the others, guys. So we've discussed most of these multinationals, those trade blocks. South Africa, obviously part of BRICS. South Africa also part of SADC, SADC. We have ASEAN. We have the European Union. Remember, I showed you guys ASEAN a couple of seconds ago. I think it was this guy that we looked at. I can't even remember which one it was. So those kinds of economic arrangements between different countries. Yeah, I discussed this in the assignment. I'm not going to go through that again. So why is global business and international business different? I think the main reality is if you're a local business, you only have to concern yourself with the pestle factors of that particular area or that particular country. If you're a global business, you have to consider global factors in terms of pestle, but you also, for every country that you operate in, you have to consider their local pestle and competitive factors. So it becomes very, very complex in terms of how to manage that kind of footprint, where globally you have to be very aware of global issues, and then those divisions that sit in different countries have to deal with the realities of the pestles in each of those nations. And remember, let me be honest with you, nations aren't homogenous. Things across nations are very, very different. Right. So if we look at why we go global, I think reactive reasons is always going to the moment we mention reactive, that something has happened and you're playing catch up. So in terms of reactive reasons, a lot of people have done it because of multinationals. So you have Apple, you have Samsung, you have Amazon, those kinds of Google type organizations. All of a sudden, you realize that to compete at that level, to get the benefits of economies of scale, the amount that we now invest in terms of new products, etc., you have to have economies of scale to recoup your initial investment. So what happens is you do it because your competitors have do it, or you become Nando's and you realize that you're not going to sell any more chicken. You've got a saturated market here. You go look elsewhere and you go to the UK and wherever else you've gone. In terms of proactive reasons, I think the reality is there are significant benefits if you can get it right to going global. So the first one is economies of scale, but economies of scale underpins those two as well, to be honest with you. The idea of location economies, and I've spoken about this, where different countries have different competencies. So, we manufacture in China because it's cheap. They have a concept called cost innovation. We design in Germany because those people are bright and they have fantastic technology. We market in America because they're a bunch of BS artists. I wonder if anyone, Kat, you're not from America, hey? Also, you can then acquire resources internationally. I know in terms of resources internationally, you can then go to where the resources are the cheapest. Oh gosh, what have I done there? And then, yeah, it's diversifying markets and risk. People's economies perform differently. Sometimes you'll have a dip in demand in one country, but a spike in demand in another. And then the idea of core competencies, which again to me is location economies again. They love asking this in the exam, guys. This is one of those, I would envy it now already, although I will do a proper exam prep and we'll do practice exams, etc. The exam brief is out. I don't know if anyone's seen it. I believe people are struggling to open it. I opened it. Oh, it just into Sandra, was it you who asked me about the exam brief? I think it was. They say you've got to update your Microsoft stuff and it will open. What? Um, n- Absolutely, Kat. 100%. But you have to have those elements in place. The kinds of things that save businesses at an end of life phase. Think of what they've done for gin. Gin was on the way out. And somehow gin became the fad. I know that gin is not as sparkly as it was about 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, but it's that kind of resuscitation. Think of vinyl records. No one wanted their vinyl records. People were giving their vinyl records to the SPCA to sell. And all of a sudden, now vinyl is in. It is cigars. All of a sudden, it's absolutely influences. Cigars became absolutely something no one touched. Cigars had this massive uptake in terms of interest again. So, we have phases and fads, and you get a couple of influencers starting to use your products, starting to drink gin. Who fell for the gin craze? Can I ask and be honest? Because I see some names here that I think would have fallen into the gin craze and started drinking gin because it was the right thing to be seen to be doing. Who fell for the gin craze? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with gin. I didn't fall for it. I drink beer. Who else fell for that? With cognac, yeah, no, boy. Okay, that's when you get money, boy. So you landed a tender or something, Mangaliso. Cognac, yeah. Well, there's a real cognac spike as well now. Hey, there's a real spike in demand for cognac. Oh, still in it. Tunzi is laughing at my joke. Poor Mangaliso is getting jumped on. He's done nothing wrong. Which cognac do you drink, boy? Don't tell me it's Hennessy. Isn't it Hennessy that the wealthy guys drink, Tunzi? Hennessy, isn't it? Mangalisa, do you want to tell us what's happened with the extra money all of a sudden? Because I'm quite happy to sell A's, boy. So Mangalisa's gone dead quiet. Okay, guys, in terms of this question, the biscuit. Oh, very nice, boy. Very nice. Very impressive. I didn't ask that though. So, in terms of this, guys, just envy this. Generally, it starts off, Kat, and I know you're asking for a reason with inquiries from abroad or some sort of advertising to create a need. Generally, it's safer to export. So, what you would do is you would export to an agent. So you have to find some sort of link initially with an agent in the country that you want to export to. I'm now talking to Cat specifically. Once that takes up, and once you get a brand presence and a brand recognition in the other country, you generally will go into this where you'll set up a sales force, you'll do marketing, and you might consider branches. Often better to do that in conjunction with some sort of strategic partner or some sort of joint venture being set up. And this is where you need attorneys involved. I don't know if Kat is still here. Okay, you are here still, Kat. And then you'll see, you then start licensing people to manufacture on your behalf. And then you can see how you then transition to an M&E. This is a very nice model. Now, this is a model. We, in recent times, in particular in the kind of industries that we associate with the internet, etc., we have seen the so-called born global companies. Give me examples of companies that went from zero to global in one single go. We talk about born global. And I can tell you now, you have these on your phone. At least if you have got this on your phone. WhatsApp, very nice, Nathan. Spotify, born global. Netflix, born global. TikTok, nice one, Nathan. Yeah, born global. So, as much as this is a process, we have to remember that certain innovations go global very rapidly. Gen AI or ChatGPT, I don't want to talk about it because people used it to cheat and it annoyed the living daylights out of me. Okay, guys, so in terms of M&Es, and I'm not going to go through this detail, knowing macro environment globally, but also knowing it in each country. Guys, I'm not discussing this. If you do not know Pestle by now, then honestly, you should go ask Varsity College for your money back. So just remember, Pestle operating at two levels, Pestle globally, but then also Pestle at a local level in a country. I'm not discussing this, okay? Honestly, I'm not seriously doing that today. Okay. So my apologies. There's a valid reason I'm jumping. You should know Pestle. And if you don't, well, I don't know, then you should go back to school or back to first year. How's that for being rude? You guys can report me. So when we look at international competitive advantage, and I'm well aware that this was also one of those questions that we looked at in terms of the assignment. This one is an important NB, guys. I think we have to realize that to be globally competitive, you have to look at the distinctive competitive advantage, its own thing that makes it magic. But if your own thing is your brand, then that's what you exploit. When we look at those top brands, when I had that one open, I mean, these are seriously recognizable brands. I don't know whether I know what Tencent is. I do know what Tencent is. They in technology. Um, but all of those are seriously recognizable brands, okay? So you have to find that magic, whether it's your brand, whether it's your ability to innovate, it doesn't really matter, but that's part of your competitive advantage. But notice that starts off domestic. So locally, we're known as an innovator. And then you have to look at the idea of where do we put our outlets. We have to find, and I'm going to use the term fertile ground, because you don't just haphazardly establish businesses anywhere in the world. You go where there is fertile ground. Now, there are a couple of ways of measuring fertile ground. And again, Kat, I know that you are looking, oh, Blue Ocean makes it fantastic, and those born global companies. No, absolutely. Then you need to export. Then you need to export. You need to find an agent elsewhere that will export for you, Cat. Yeah, no, the reality is most people who have a wonderful idea are territorial over their stuff, but you will find that it'll become impossible later. But start with an export. Find an agent in a country where you can export to. Guys, so if we look at what determines competitive advantage in a global context, so the first one is what the organization has. And I'm not going to go through it, but it's technology, it's skills, it's the brand that it has, it's the reputation, it's the stuff that fits into the organization's micro environment. Then you have to look at the key industry key success factors. You'll remember, and I know I capped last year, in terms of the key success factors, remember, key success factors are those non-negotiables that you have to have ticked off in order to compete in certain industries. I think I would have used, to be in the fast food industry, you need foot traffic, you need good quality, good value for money, quick turnaround, those non-negotiables. And then you need to look at the country where you want to go to. And exchange rates is important because, exporting to South Africa is very difficult because, we have to pay so much extra. But exporting from South Africa, then your exchange rate is significantly in your favor. One of the models that we use to determine that fertile ground, to determine where do we go, is Porter's diamond. So this is Porter's diamond. Porter talks about 4 attributes, and I'll talk about each of those: factor, demand, etc. I'm going to skip there. So Porter argues that depending on how these factors are addressed from a business perspective, the more of these factors that you can tick off, the more fertile the ground should be in terms of settling in a particular nation. So the first one is, and Kat mentioned this already, basic factor endowments. I think natural resources still matter, climate still matters, basic workforce skills. We're not bad in those, guys. Our climate is good. We are a water poor country, and that is a concern. Our basic workforce skills, we've got plenty labor. And when you sit with an unemployment rate that is the highest in the world, I mean, imagine having that as your record, the country with the highest employment rate globally. What a ridiculous thing to say. Those basics have to be in place. Gosh, I'm getting bombarded with messages from students. And an electricity poor country, but it's a factor condition that you have to consider, where it's part, I would imagine, of natural resources actually. And then what advanced factor endowments. Now, because of brain drain, we struggle here. But you go settle where there are universities producing high quality graduates. We look at that. And this applies on a regional basis, it applies on a national basis. Knowledge resources, the idea of patents, etc., that we register, capital, infrastructure, and technologies. Nath, you live in KwaZulu-Natal. this model was used when Pinetown established Marion Hill. Oh, you live in Cape Town? Sorry, but I'm jealous. You live where my kid lives. Okay, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Okay, guys, and then the next one, demand conditions. You need to go where there is a demand for your products and service. But what is important, what demand conditions do, is where people have to be innovative to survive locally. Kat, you guys are making me so jealous. I mean, yeah, my boy lives in Cape Town. I live in bloody Pietermaritzburg, man. I need to go to Cape Town. That's the intention. And then, guys, related and supporting industries. So you need banks, you need schools, you need attorneys, etc., etc. And then also in terms, oh my gosh, sorry, my apologies. It's that one there. So you need to look at those. And then chance and government factors are there as well. Chance factors are things like, and then like, sorry, local organizational strategies. Are they using globally best practices? And then obviously government and chance factors. Governments can either be pro investment or they can be anti investment. South Africa, although we rush around talking about pro investment, you've got Julius Malema saying we're going to nationalize. I mean, how ridiculously stupid is that? You've also got issues in terms of electricity there. But, you know, in Pinetown, what they did is they gave land away for free. They built an electricity substation. They did all the water reticulation connects, etc., for free, just to attract. You know, the idea in terms of business now, and it applies to an extent to small business, is that you need to know your core business and that you outsource the non-core business stuff. But it's very difficult when you're a tiny business to do that. But outsourcing marketing is possible. Outsourcing PR is possible. Outsourcing HR is possible. Outsourcing all your accounts is possible. And then sticking to the core business. So you have to know, Kat, outsource your call center. Kat, you have to know your core business. And once you know your core business, you can outsource the non core business stuff. But it depends on what you consider core. Now, if you are, what did you call yourself earlier? Territorial. I can't see you outsourcing the marketing. I can't see you outsourcing the finance. The ones that are non-negotiable are those directly related to the product or service that you deliver. So everything related to your product creation, I would imagine in your case, ops. I would also imagine marketing would be worth keeping so you can control the narrative. But marketing is a unique skill. Hey, so sometimes it's worth outsourcing marketing and advertising. So, but the non-negotiable are those that are directly related to creating value in your business. So it's ops. Okay. And if and purchasing will be a non-negotiable as well. My apologies. Purchasing will be a non-negotiable. You can't outsource purchasing or supply chain, whatever you call that. Okay. Guys, and then chance events, natural disasters, not too serious in South Africa. And then it looks like that. Okay. So please remember Porter's Diamond. They haven't asked it in a while, but as I did say, we will do some sort of prediction of the exam as we did in first semester, which I did much better than last year, Nate. Just to say, I was pretty good at predicting in first semester. Guys, and then in terms of the different orientations that businesses adopt, ethnocentric, this is American, where you believe that everything you do at home is best. So your standards, your practices, your everything essentially comes from the home nation. Polycentric is where you allow the local country to have their culture, their values, their morals, their ways of doing dominate decision making. Regiocentric is this idea that you have regions and you have a footprint across different countries, which would form a region, and you would then accommodate the regional influences. Geocentric is when you are a hotshot multinational, guys, when you're a global giant, when you that sort of Apple and those kinds of things. So you first of all need some sort of SAP system, whichever is that, because you need some way of integrating all your operations. And then it's a worldwide attitude where we take the best practices from the countries where those best practices live. So there's none of this, we too arrogant or we're going to give over. We create global best practices based on what is available. And that's where consultants make a lot of money. Guys, and then just in terms of competitive advantage. So when we look at competitive advantage and strategy, and this is the assignment question, Global global organizations face two issues all the time. Cost reduction, so there's a cost issue, and then how much must they customize in terms of local responsiveness. So the two things that they have to balance will always be the cost. How important is this to make it as cheap as possible, or is cost not an issue? And how important is it to localize what we sell, to customize locally? That then summarizes into those. So when you have low pressures and low pressures, international strategy. If you're selling Bugattis, let's be honest, doesn't really matter. You've got low pressure for cost. You don't want to local responsiveness. You might change it from left to right-hand drive. Okay. If you have high pressures to keep things cheap, but low pressures to customize, you can sell t-shirts like that, guys. T-shirts are t-shirts are t-shirts. If you have to do a lot of customizing, and you have to consider the local flavor, you have to consider the local culture, you would adopt a multi-domestic strategy. Guys, these are often things that are unique to different nations. I can't offhand. Can someone think of a product? Fast food is a very good one. Yeah, I think fast food is a pretty good one. And then in terms of the transnational strategy, guys, this is where you Microsoft and where you Apple, etc., where you have to look at cost pressures from both elements. And the fact is, if you think of what Windows would offer you, you can customize it in terms of everything. Yeah, McDonald's, I think, yeah, McDonald's, maybe there is, yeah, it is McD's actually. Cat, they are is so expensive, and the reason it's so expensive is because our rand is so weak. We have to consider that we importing from a place that charges dollars. So, if you're in America, software is cheap, but in South Africa, it's expensive, and it's just because of the exchange rate. Lead her down the illegal path there, will you, boy? I think Pirate Bay might give you office as well. I'm being recorded, so I'm going to shut up now. Guys, international strategies. Okay, we've spoken about that. I think serious core competency, weak local responsiveness, and cost reduction, Microsoft. And you can see the idea of what is going on there. And I'm running out of time. Multi-domestic, where it's important for responsiveness and cost reduction. And then, guys, global strategy, just pressures for cost reduction, and then transnational, where you have both. Okay. Kat, this is important. So if you want to have a glance at 49 onwards, it's worth looking at in terms of what you're planning, hey? Right. Guys, any questions, any comments? Please, can someone remind me that we're starting on slide 49 next time? Yeah, I'm not going to be able to finish tonight. Sorry, guys. I'm contemplating, not that anyone, how's it, Liam? It's a pleasure, boy. Kat, sorry, man. I'm contemplating, guys. Okay, let me stop recording. so that we can